Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to share my recipe for sourdough rye bread. I've been making this recipe for the past 7 months, once a week, where the entire family is in love with it. It is so good. Literally, you just need to put some butter on it and it's just amazing. So the first thing is that I put 500 grams of whole grain rye flour in a bowl. It's pretty easy for me to find. Probably you can find it in most grocery stores. And then I add between 10 and 20 grams of Himalayan salt. I just love that salt. You can use any other salt, that's kind of fine. I mix it up. You just kind of have to see how salty you like it. I like it more on the salty side. And then I add 350 grams of my sourdough starter. I have not made a video yet about how to make the sourdough starter, but I will put a link to a video below that I think is really good in showing that. The next thing I do is just add 360 grams of just regular water, just room temperature, and that's all that goes into this bread. And then I mix it with a wooden spoon. Just to warn you, it is going to be a very, very sticky dough, nothing like any other bread or cookie dough that you have probably made before. If you have not worked with rye flour, it is very sticky because it doesn't contain a lot of gluten like wheat does, and so it really doesn't have that gluey, sticking together kind of quality. Very, very wet and very sticky. So, and then I cover it up. And depending on the temperature in your room, I let it sit for about 3 to 4 hours covered. And I sometimes put it in the oven that is very lightly on, just like on just room temperature, kind of make it warmer like it's a hot day. And that really helps. Then I line another bowl with a cheesecloth and I put some flour on it. You're gonna see why I put the cheesecloth in later, because otherwise it is really hard to get it out of the bowl, but the cheesecloth makes it so easier. And then I have to get it out of this bowl and switch it over to the other bowl, and in order for it not to stick to my hands, the best way I've found is just to add a little bit of olive oil to my hands and rub my hands with the olive oil, and it makes it kind of not stick to my hands so much. It's still kind of sticky, but it's workable then. And I try to form a nice ball so that I can then lift it into the other bowl. And as you can see, I don't really need this dough because the sourdough really does all the work. And since we're not trying to get the gluten working, because we don't need it, it's not in there, we don't have to really knead it. And I think that's awesome. Pretty much you just let it rest. And then I cover it with some more flour. You're gonna see why. It's gonna have some really nice cracks once it's risen. You can really tell by the flour on top if it's risen nicely. And then I set it aside for another hour or two, depending again on how warm it is in your room. If you have warm outside, you could put it there, but see how the cracks really show you that it has risen very nicely. And then I take a baking sheet and I just try to put it on there, and you see that cheesecloth, it makes it come out really easy. I could just kind of peel that off, and it's just the easiest way to get it in a nice shape onto my baking tray. And then I add some more. I put some flour on top, just regular rye flour again, because otherwise it's gonna burn. Cover it up really nicely, because and now we're gonna let it sit for another 15 minutes or so while we're gonna preheat the oven. So preheating the oven to about 180 degrees Celsius. You can see it's nicely covered with the flour. 180 degrees Celsius. And before, and see how now it has those cracks, you can tell it has that's gonna create a very nice crust. Before I put it in, I have a baking sheet on the bottom that I fill with some water, so there's some moisture in the oven, and then I put the bread in and I just let it bake for about 50 to 60 minutes, and it comes out perfectly every single time. Those cracks give it such a nice crust, and you have to kind of keep an eye on it. You don't want it to get too black and dark, but don't be afraid to get pretty dark. It's very forgiving. The rye flour is just very rustic. And so here it is. It is awesome. What I do is I cut it in 4 pieces because we don't eat that much, and I really love the fresh taste of it. See how nice and airy it is on the inside, although I didn't really need anything. The sourdough did all the work. I cut it in 4 pieces, and then I put it in some freezer bags. I have those silicone baggies that I use over and over again. And it freezes so well. I just take one out in the morning, and then we have a few fresh slices that evening, and it tastes just like freshly baked. You have to make sure you let it cool fully before you slice it, because otherwise it's gonna fall apart. And I just love it so much, just with a little bit of butter on it, or just a lot of butter maybe. I love just having that. That is so satisfying. So I hope you're gonna try it. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you're gonna be back soon.